Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's French Open Round 1 catch-up, sponsored by the Boodles.
Medvedev falls at the first hurdle.
Sakkari stunned by Muchova.
And Cam Norrie is already the last Brit standing in Paris.
Kim, today is the 30th of May and we are here to catch up on round 1 of the French Open. We've had 3 days of play in Paris and we have had one big shock, Kim. Daniil Clayvedev is no more.
And he better hope he's Daniil Medvedev sometime soon. So he doesn't, have the same fate at Wimbledon. Yeah, shock of the day. Second seed going out to, a guy ranked 170 odd in the world in 5 sets. Didn't see that one coming, but we'll get on to that in a second. That will be our first news item of the episode. I'm absolutely sure of that. But yeah, we don't have Chris today, before anyone wonders where he is, but he's in Paris, or he's on his way to Paris.
He is on his way. Yes, I have signed it off that he is allowed to go to Paris, to the French Open in person, and hopefully for our round 2 catch up he is going to be there and reporting live for us, so I'm very excited to see what he gets up to. He's already spoken to us about the schedule. He's excited. He hopes to see Luca Pouille and a certain Sloane Stephens. He's also going to be cheering on Barnett and Nichols, the British doubles, so yeah, it's all very exciting. So I look forward to seeing what he what goes on for him in Paris. But before, Kim, we begin, we have got very exciting news, because this week our French Open Week 1 coverage is sponsored by the Boodles, which is a favourite event of mine in the build-up, the last real kind of action you can get before Wimbledon on the grass courts in Stoke Park. And yeah, they're sponsoring us this week. Stefanos Tsitsipas is going to be there this year, along with Sebi Korda, Lorenzo Musetti, Hubert Hurkacz, Andrei Rublev. And it's going to promise to be, I think, a great event after a 3-year hiatus.
Yeah, it's been, I'm so glad that it's coming back. It's got a great lineup. It's a fantastic event. And we do have a very exciting competition giveaway coming up in our break. So listeners, do not miss that, because it could be your lucky day. But before we get into all of that, let's go back to Roland Garros, where we have the first round matches are kind of finishing up as we're recording this. We do have a night session still to come.
Kim, who cares about that night session, quite honestly?
Well, some French fans might, because it's Gael Monfils. But yeah, we've got most of the round 2 lineup kind of set in stone already. So the majority of the round 1 matches have been done. And we do have to, I think, start with today's top story, which is the fact that Daniil Medvedev, second seed, has lost in 5 sets in the first round of the French Open to Thiago Seyboth Wild, world number 172. 4 hours, 15 minutes on court. Wild being a qualifier. It's his first main draw win at a Grand Slam. And he's knocked out Daniil Medvedev, recent Rome champion. So, a lot of people's collector set predictions having gone quite wrong already. Yeah,
it's a very surprising result, given how well Daniil Medvedev, I think, performed in Rome. But I think you got to say that Rome result really looks like an outlier now. I mean, remember the conditions out there, the rain, the court and how it played. It really, I think, shows it doesn't tell you much about transitioning from Rome to Paris. And I think Medvedev today, he came up against an opponent who was just firing on all cylinders, in particular his forehand. I think he hit over 50 winners alone on that side of the court. And Medvedev at times was getting frustrated with himself. I think there were a few too many balls just put back into the middle of the court, and Wild was just ready and waiting there to punish them.
Yeah, I think Wild said, he came out and he just wanted to come in as much as possible to the net. really focus on his forehand, and obviously it worked pretty well. He could have taken that second set as well. He had 2 set points.
I mean, that for me felt like it was going to be the turning point, because Medvedev, it seemed, had broken Wild in that tie break. I just remember him clawing it back, and then Wild have that terrible smash on set point against him, and I thought, well, right, that's it. He's given a good show, and Medvedev is just going to run away with this now. And you would have thought, with the momentum that Medvedev was carrying in from Rome, that with all his experience, that he would have been able to kind of handle the situation. But yeah, to my surprise, he let Wild back into it in that 4th set, and it didn't really get much better for him. And I think that was, massive credit to Wild, in the sense that I think a lot of people would have expected him to just fade away. The longer that went in the match, we know how much of a wall Daniil Medvedev is from the back of the court. But Wild was just ready and waiting, and he wasn't going to give up until that very last point.
Yeah, and also, he's a qualifier. He's come in, obviously got a run of form. He's won 2 challenger titles this year, so obviously been coming in with some decent form. But he said in his press conference that he was cramping in the second set. So, I mean, just the fact that he was then able to eke out a 5-set win after having cramped so early on in the match, that's pretty impressive. But it does beg the question of how far can he go if he's sort of physically probably quite exhausted after all his qualifying rounds and this 5-set match. I think he's going to be up against either Quentin Halys or Guido Pella. So I'll be surprised if he goes much further. But he did play fantastically well today for most of the match. So fair play.
And I think he was helped a little bit by Medvedev, particularly on his serve. I know it was quite blustery. I think particularly when you play on Chatrier, we've seen over the last few days, handling the court and the elements as much as the opponent and across the net is really, really important because of the wind factor. And Medvedev was, I think, very uncharacteristic today in terms of the number of double faults he gave up in the match. I mean, he gave up 15 in total, and again, he was just offering 3 points on his serve, and it was allowing Wild to kind of set a platform, I think, to really have a crack. And he had those opportunities that he took, and he came out with a victory. I think it's fascinating to think about how quickly tennis can turn, I think, for a player. And for me, it's still very surprising we're talking about Daniil Medvedev going out in round 1, given he was the second seed, given that Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz on that other side of the draw. You would have felt that this was a big opportunity for him to potentially make another Grand Slam final.
Yeah, and he'd obviously been the tour leader, in terms of wins on the tour, trophies on the tour this season. So coming in with, an impressive kind of cohort of results from this season, but that hasn't meant anything. Now he's out in the first round. He'll have to wait to capture a second Grand Slam title. I think some people might have felt that given his Rome title, things on the clay might be looking a bit different, but it hasn't been the case. So he'll have to really just focus and head to the grass now. And I mean, the other thing that's come out after today, though, Joel, some of our listeners may have heard in the news, is Wild's it came up in his press conference, actually, but a lot of people sort of talking about this on social media. There are outstanding domestic abuse allegations against Wild from an ex-girlfriend. This dates back to September 2021. And I think there's still investigations pending of physical and mental assault. So a really unsavoury note to kind of Wild's performance and run here, but obviously this sort of news clouding the outcome of the match today, really. Obviously, we don't know the ins and outs of the case, but it doesn't leave a nice sort of impression.
Leaves a sour taste in the mouth, doesn't it? I think reading these allegations, I wasn't aware of them until kind of reading about them today. Yeah, they're not great. We know that tennis has an issue with this sort of stuff. We've seen cases in the past with Basilashvili, and people would say Sasha Zverev spring to mind. So yeah, it's almost annoying and I think unfortunate that it's still it's still part of the, the conversation. I think it happened over, a few years ago, and it doesn't seem to have been a conclusion. And again, it chimes with some of the things we've seen with ongoing investigations taking too long, and things needing to happen quicker. And who knows, maybe having Seyboth Wild with this result, it's going to certainly, I think, call into question some of his background that inevitably happens when big players are upset by players lower down in the rankings. I think back to, Tennis Sangrin, in that run at the Australian Open, and everyone was kind of quick to kind of call out his social media profile and historical tweets, etc. So yeah, there's a little bit of a sour taste there, but on performance alone, he was fantastic, and I have to give him credit, because Medvedev, although he has said that he does not like clay in the past, I don't think he would have been going into this he wouldn't have been going into the French Open thinking, I just want to get this tournament over and done with. He was really, really trying out there, and Seyboth Wild just put a better game plan together on the day.
Yeah, performance alone, Seyboth Wild, a worthy winner overall. And I mean, from one Grand Slam champion to another, but this time a former champ here on the clay, Barbora Krejcikova, another surprise result from today. She was knocked out in straight sets by Lesia Tsurenko of Ukraine. I mean, Chris went far with Krejcikova in his predictions.
I sort of want him on the podcast so we can talk about his thinking in relation to this.
Yeah, and Krejcikova, since winning the title at Roland Garros in 2021, she hasn't won a single match here in the singles. She lost in the first round last year to Diane Parry. I think she had COVID, or she, a couple of days after that, she did withdraw with COVID, so perhaps wasn't feeling great. And I know she'd had some injury issues, but why do you think she struggled to really, get back into her groove on these courts that she did so well on in 2021?
Yeah, I think, she's not had the greatest of form of late. I think, Tsurenko is a tricky first round encounter. She's a player, obviously, she's from Ukraine. She's going to be heavily motivated. And I do think she is a player who likes to come up as the underdog and can put a really good performance together. But certainly Krejcikova is just bang out of form at the moment. I mean, just looking at the stats, 26 unforced errors in a 6-2, 6-4 straight sets lost, not particularly great. And it's just massively disappointing for her in an event that she's done so well on in the past. Yes, she's still got the doubles that's all to play for, but we're expecting her to make much better inroads in the singles, and it feels like at the moment we're quite far away from talking about Barbora Krejcikova at the peak of her game in the singles court and the doubles court, which we were in, I feel like a season ago or whatever, but now we've gone back to still kind of a formidable presence on the doubles court, but there's still quite a lot of room to I think to justify being the kind of around that 10th seed. I know she was the 13th seed here, but to be around that level, I think she's got to go back and maybe do some soul searching and figure out what I need to do on the singles court to get myself back up there.
Yeah, maybe if she doesn't, I hate to say the words one-hit wonder, but maybe she'll be that for the singles kind of side of things anyway, in terms of winning any more slams. I mean, Tsurenko has been in the top 25 before. Yeah. She has had some good results at slams previously.
And she's her issue, much like Karolina Muchova, which we'll get onto, who I say stunned Sakkari, but she's an unbelievable competitor on her day. But they both have had their injury struggles over the seasons, and as much as it might look as a massive shock on paper because Tsurenko is unseeded, yeah, she's certainly a very fierce competitor on her day.
Yeah, and it's also her 34th birthday today, so happy birthday, Lesia Tsurenko. Well done on your win. I also noticed that Coco Gauff had a battle today. She was a set down on
Masarova.
Yeah, Rebecca Masarova of Spain. Coco Gauff hasn't won back-to-back matches on European clay this season, so And, as a former finalist here last year, she's got a lot of points to defend. Didn't get off to a great start, but came back and won the last 2 sets 6-1, 6-2. She began to kind of get a bit more confident and just sort of increasing the aggression in her game. What did you make of Coco Gauff? Do you think she can play her way into some form here and get those back-to-back wins finally?
Yeah, I think she was certainly helped by Masarova. I mean, she turned up, yes, for that first set, but she, I feel like, just completely capitulated and arguably handed it to Coco Gauff on the plate. I mean, Masarova hit 40 unforced errors across the match, so a lot of free points given to Gauff. And yeah, if you're in Coco Gauff's shoes at the moment, you'd happily take that, because yeah, she is desperately, I think, trying to find some form. And probably similar to kind of Barbora Krejcikova, was probably looking going into this tournament as, I've had success stories on here in the past. I've gone very deep in this tournament, and I've loved playing on this court. I've got fond memories of it, and I'm really glad she was able to kind of almost do a complete reset in those second and third sets. And I've got confidence that she can grow into the tournament. I mean, Kalinina, who I thought could be a tricky opponent for her in the third round, also lost today, so the draw is getting a little bit easier for her. And I think she's got another kind of unseeded player up next, and I certainly think there's an opportunity there for her to get some wins under her belt and maybe cause some surprises further down the line, because I don't think anyone is really talking about her at the moment as maybe they should, as a French Open finalist from last year.
Might be just as well what she needs, kind of less attention and focus almost. I mean, I've kind of I had Kalinina Gauff earmarked as a round 3 with Kalinina winning, which influenced my collector set result.
Exactly.
It could actually be Mira Andreeva against Coco Gauff, and I was thinking Andreeva, one to watch. She's only 16 years old. She had a good run at Madrid last month, and this is the first Grand Slam match of her career that she's won today. And I don't know, I just have a funny feeling she could go quite far.
Is she going to do an Emma Raducanu
in this tournament?
Is she the next Emma Raducanu? She's come through qualifying.
Yeah, exactly. And she won today in under an hour, thrashing Alison Risk. But she's also a massive Andy Murray fan, apparently. She's been texting him. He's inspired her to win. So she's credited him for kind of, getting her over the line. But I don't know. Maybe I think Gauff's draw isn't the easiest if she's not playing great. There's some younger players than even Coco Gauff who could upset her.
I don't necessarily think that was a bad result for Alison Risk. She wants to get on the grass court.
She does.
That's her. That's her bread and butter. And I think this was a fantastic result for Andreeva. I mean, as a teenager, to do that against someone as experienced as Alison Risk is unbelievable. She was absolutely climbing all over Alison's Risk serve throughout the match, and it was mightily impressive. I did joke about, is this kind of the next Emma Raducanu sort of journey that could potentially happen? I could see her going on another nice little run in this competition. She's on full of confidence at the moment. She's come through qualifying with matches under her belt, and she's such a talented prospect. I almost want to see her more of her on the court, not dish out these drubbings, because there's so much I think to like about her. I mean, I remember I watched her lose to kind of Sabalenka, I think, in Madrid. And I do think, there's still that kind of element of, if she comes up against, a powerful player from the baseline, is she going to get kind of overwhelmed? But certainly against other types of players, she can really kind of mix it from the back of the court. Really love the spins that she kind of develops, and the angles that she plays with. And it'll be fascinating to just keep an eye on her, and I think see also how the crowd kind of react to her as well, because as she's just coming onto the scene. Not many people know about her. It's all probably a bit hush hush. I want to see what this player is like, and I just think she should just kind of soak it in and see where it takes her.
Yeah, she also has an older sister, Erica, who's currently on court, but is set down to Emma Navarro.
They all seem to come in pairs, don't they? We've got the Linda and Brenda Kvitova as well. It just seems that there's always like a sister combo.
keeping it in the family. But yeah, other results from the women's tour, for the women's side of things today. Ons Jabeur, Elena Rybakina, Iga Swiatek, all through in straight sets against their respective opponents. We haven't seen Ons Jabeur on a tennis court in a while, but she managed to navigate through Lucia Bronzetti, which was good because last year she lost in the first round, didn't she?
Exactly. That was a very entertaining win. I was slightly nervous what Ons Jabeur was going to turn up because she's such a fun player to watch when she's on, but I don't feel like she has been on as much as she would have liked over the season so far. But again, another player who's got fantastic memories of playing at the French Open, and she's such a shot maker from the back of the court, and particularly I think in that second set it was all on show against Bronzetti.
Yeah, and Rybakina looked, very in control against Brenda Fruhvirtova. She's got another Czech next round, Linda Noskova. So working her way through the young Czech players, perhaps.
I mean, the Czechs not doing that well. I think I read the top 4 Czech players in the rankings all lost without winning a set.
Yep. Kvitova's gone, hasn't she, as
Kvitova,
well?
Yeah.
Pliskova. Who would be
Krejcikova?
Yeah. Not a good day for the Czech.
Yeah, no, not good at all for such a strong nation. Not great. Interestingly, on Rybakina, a lot of the focus was on the fact that she's no longer with Adidas. She is not with Adidas anymore, and everyone was a little bit taken by surprise. But she said that Adidas did not treat her well, so she said goodbye, and she's moved on.
Is she with Yonex now? I think she was wearing a Yonex shirt. I may be wrong. It was quite a nice outfit. I quite like the colour, but there you go. Clothing changes. And then, Iga Swiatek just finishing up not so long ago, 4-love against Christina Buxer. Bit of a slow start. There's a couple of breaks. But
I was a little bit nervous. You never know following, because that match obviously followed the Daniil Medvedev shock. And you never know what I feel is going to happen. Strange things have happened. Are they going to continue? And Buska was certainly threatening, I think, in that first set. It certainly wasn't vintage, Swiatek. I did think that Buska was playing borderline out of her skin, but there's certainly opportunities on Swiatek's serve for players to get into. I think her second serve in particular, it was a very kind of vulnerable spot that Buska was kind of climbing all over to get kind of breakpoint opportunities. So she'll want to make sure that is put right, I think, going further into the tournament.
Yeah, and one match that was earmarked as a first round, Bianca Andreescu versus Victoria Azarenka. So far, that's not really living up to the billing. Perhaps Azarenka's setting a breakup. Chris won't be very happy, will he? I'm sure he's wanting Andreescu to win that one. But we'll see how that turns out. Before we go on to having a little break, Joel, there has been a lot of criticism yet again with French Open scheduling. All the night session matches so far have been men's matches. We've got Monfils tonight. We opened with, I think, Mannarino Humbert on Sunday. It's Djokovic tomorrow night against Fucsovics. I think they did ask Caroline Garcia. She said no, she doesn't want to play so late, which is fair enough. I might do the same if I was her. But I mean, what do you make of their schedule? I know we've discussed this probably last year and maybe the year before, but it's a bit problematic if almost every night match is going to be men's.
There's so many different elements that are problematic to me. The fact that it's only one match is problematic. The fact that you've got players that don't want to play it is problematic. As you said, the chat is that Caroline Garcia was asked to play her match, her first round match, as a night match, and she said no because she didn't want to finish late and it kind of disrupt her kind of competition. So that is problematic in itself. And the matches that we do get they just feel very kind of underwhelming. And I get that this night session match is probably more geared towards the French crowd. Hence, we've got Gael Monfils against Sebastian Baez this evening. I think that could be a real entertainer. So I could actually say, okay, yeah, that could have evening star potential. But matches like Mannarino Humbert to open an evening match of the French Open 2023 first evening match, that just does not feel right. And I think they could do better in terms of looking at some of the women's matches that don't necessarily involve French players. I think actually the bigger like round one marquee matchups have been on that ladies' side, and not so much necessarily on the men's side. But again, you've got that issue of if you're only going to have one match, you have no doubt fans might feel a little bit kind of shortchanged if they're only going to get one best of three ladies match.
Yeah, I think I would rather have two ladies matches, but starting them at a reasonable time. So
you got to start earlier. Yeah,
isn't going off into the night too much. In the middle, early hours of the morning, which just gets ridiculous. Maybe they wanted to give Ugo Humbert a reward for becoming the new French number one. It's a changing situation as we know of that. So
I mean, what would you do? For the French Open, do you think they should keep the night session? You obviously know why they do it. It's for money purposes. We know how broke we know how much money we know that the French Tennis Federation are looking at the French Open and ways to monetize it as much as possible. Do you think it's a case of just tweaking the format for next year potentially, or how would you like to see it change?
It is tricky because you could say, let's start the evening session early, have two matches, but then if the day session runs late, then it just is a nightmare for controlling crowds and all of that. So we're here, we are criticising, but do we have a solution? It's all very well us saying, oh, they shouldn't do this, they shouldn't do that, but I don't know. I mean, generally, when it comes to clay and grass events, I'm quite a traditionalist. I don't really like the night session so much. I think a roof should only be used for rain. I think, you've got it's a daytime event, that's sort of my traditional opinion, but I totally see the need for commercial avenues to be,
it feels like it's driving the decision, and it's just not giving us a great experience. It's giving us a beige sort of experience. I think we're not really sure what to make of it. I think everyone's a little bit divided on it. And I think if you look at some of the crowds, the numbers in the crowds, for these matches, even with like the French players involved, it doesn't feel like it's a very, hustle and bustle live wire atmosphere like you get, when you go late night, in Melbourne or in New York City, where it's a completely different atmosphere. So yeah,
I guess it also, the positive side is that it does give like locals a chance to just pop after work and get their hands on a ticket. Maybe they don't want to commit to a whole day, take a day off work. They can just, go to a match after work. So I think in a way that does expand the accessibility to more fans if they kind of just want to pop along for, a shorter period of time. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know what our listeners think on that one. Do you prefer night session matches at the French Open, or would you rather go back to how it was before? But let's take a quick break now. We'll be back in the second half, looking back at day one and day two, so Sunday and Monday from the French Open, as well as revealing our collector set predictions, some of which are already quite old. So do not go anywhere.
The Boodles is back. After a 3-year break, the ultimate pre-Wimbledon tennis event is returning to Stoke Park from the 27th of June to the 1st of July.
And we're offering one lucky Tennis Weekly listener the chance to win a pair of stadium passes to join us at the country estate for a day of world-class tennis in an English garden party setting,
where you can sip champagne, dine in style, and mingle with your favourite tennis stars, including
Stefanos Tsitsipas,
Andrei Rublev,
Felix Auger-Aliassime,
Seb Korda,
Lorenzo Musetti,
Hubert Hurkacz,
and even more top players to be confirmed in the coming weeks.
The Boodles is located just 35 minutes from central London, and every seat in the stadium is no more than 10 metres from the court, giving every guest the ultimate fan experience on one of the UK's finest grass courts.
Tickets start from £90 and attendance is strictly limited to 2,000 per day, so booking early is advised to avoid disappointment. To book, visit their website, theboodles.com.
And for your chance to win a pair of stadium passes, all you have to do is follow us on social media at Tennis Weekly Pod, like our competition post, and tag a friend that you would like to come with you.
Maximum 2 entries per person, 1 per social channel on Instagram and Twitter. The competition closes on Sunday the 4th of June at midnight. Winners will be announced on our 4th round catch-up on Tuesday the 6th of June, so listen in to find out if you are a lucky winner.
Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, sponsored by the Boodles. And now we're going to move on to look back at day 2 and day 1 of the action from Roland Garros. We had a bit of we had a couple of incidents, I suppose. Say incidents, but a bit of talking points.
Politics, tennis. They've combined. They've clashed.
Should they be combining? That's the thing. We had Marta Kostyuk up against Aryna Sabalenka. Sabalenka won straight sets, pretty comfortable, 6-3, 6-2. Marta Kostyuk did not shake hands with Sabalenka. You know, she hasn't been shaking hands with anyone from Belarus or Russia, as have, you know, a lot of the Ukrainian players have been refusing to do that. The French crowd, maybe they weren't aware that this was going to happen, or that Kostyuk hasn't been shaking hands with these players. They were booing her off the court. And I mean, Sabalenka thought at first they were booing her, but then it was actually Kostyuk they were booing. And it's just a very unsavoury end to the match. What did you make of this, Joel? Were the French crowd right to boo? Were they out of order to boo?
I've got to side with Marta Kostyuk on this. She was pretty explosive in her comments, in her presser afterwards, and she just said flat out, people should be honestly embarrassed, with how they acted. And given the context of, what's going on at the moment, even on that day, there were drone attack in Kiev, which is quite kind of close to kind of Marta Kostyuk, and for then her to go on court, put in a performance, be defeated, and then to have the crowd boo you for not giving a handshake. I think the crowd have got to look beyond, visually on the court and be more aware of what is happening, in the world. And I don't think, this flatters the French Open crowd at all. I get that, there's a very kind of playful manner to some of their kind of booing and interaction on the court, but I think there are some kind of issues and moments where it should just not be happening at all. And this for me is really kind of in comparison and in stark contrast to Wimbledon. Wimbledon, the All England Lawn Tennis Club are putting out and giving so much support to kind of the Ukrainian players, and you just can't imagine a tennis crowd at Wimbledon having the same sort of reaction. They would see it, they would kind of accept that's their stance. We've played a tennis match, that's their stance, they don't want to do a handshake, we move on. And I think, a British crowd can accept that. And I think all crowds should be accepting that. And I think, to me, it's a little bit embarrassing that the French crowd, in parts, I'm not saying everyone did it, but in parts, were vocally booing a player who is going through, an unbelievable time at the moment with, in relation to her country.
Yeah, and this is one of the ways in which she feels she can take a stand and make a point. And to boo that, it's kind of saying, oh no, how this just, it's not respectful. And I think it's a lack of, it's like an ignorance on the crowd's part, isn't it?
And I think it was confusing as well. It wasn't expected, given how Sabalenka responded and thought it was about her. It just showed, I think, the level of surprise that it had, on the players. And I think it's still interesting though, because I know you have an opinion or a take on handshakes, and if you feel like, is there an argument to say you just got to get on with it and do it for the sake of it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't think there's any rule or fine that a player gets for not shaking the hand of their opponent. I'm like, my natural opinion is that, just, even if there's something you disagree with, or, you're not happy with something that happened in the match, away from kind of politics, it's a sign of respect to that individual just to shake their hands. And I think by choosing not to shake the hands of a group of players based on their nationality, and, most of them, perhaps all of them, probably have zero connections to, the war and Putin's decision to go to war. Is it necessarily the right thing to refuse to shake hands on a sort of blanket scale? I don't know. But I mean, how can I, I'm not in Marta Kostyuk's shoes. It's all very well for me to say that. I'm completely aware of that.
She's certainly, I think, the most hostile Ukrainian player when it comes to this. She is kind of, really adamant about it, and she, doesn't hold back. In her press conferences, she said, I want to see people react to it in 10 years when the war is over. I think they will not feel really nice about what they did. So she was very honest and open, with how she kind of viewed the situation. And it was interesting to see this was not just kind of an isolated instance, because we had Kudermetova versus Schmiedlova. Now, before we talk about it, because I had Kudermetova go kind of in my predictions in the tournament, which has not gone very well. But she lost to Schmiedlova. Schmiedlova was in a kind of showing her support for Ukraine. She's a Slovakian. Her outfit was kind of dressed in the colours of the Ukraine flag. So I feel like there are more kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Not subverted, implicit ways of kind of showing your support. And for example, with Schmiedlova, it might be kind of like wearing an outfit with the colours on, but for Marta Kostyuk, it's I'm not going to shake your hand.
Yeah, exactly. There's different interpretations and ways about it. One other player, though, that has courted controversy, and it's not a player, it's a player that certainly hasn't avoided controversy before, and that's Novak Djokovic. He had a very run-of-the-mill match, straight sets over American Alexander Kovacevic. But most of the talking points from this match, apart from the fact the third set went to a tie break, is that Djokovic...
That doesn't happen very often, I think, in round one Novak Djokovic Grand Slam matches. He did say, I think I was reading, he is now 19-0 in round one matches at the French Open, which is still an incredible achievement. But as you said, the drama was more the TV camera and what he wrote into the TV camera after the match.
Yeah, he wrote, Kosovo is the heart of Serbia. Stop the violence, which is a very political statement. There's been a lot of tensions out on the Kosovo-Serbia border. I think NATO peacekeeping soldiers are involved. Serbian military has been sent there. Lots of protests going on. As a result of what Novak's written, the Kosovo Tennis Federation are requesting some sort of punishment from the ITF or ATP on Djokovic. And I don't think this was particularly well thought out on Djokovic's part, given the fact that, we've seen a lot of issues around the, Russian and Belarusian players. They're all having to sign, like neutrality statements, I think, for Wimbledon this year. And it brings into the question of, other political issues and conflicts in the world. Should players be promoting these, or, I know he said stop the violence. He probably doesn't want war, of course. I'm not saying that, but can be interpreted in many different ways, and it's probably best not to put it out there so publicly on a big camera where thousands of people are watching. Yeah,
it was a statement that he's obviously a very patriotic player. Likes to wear his heart on his sleeve, and the TV camera. We've obviously seen it being used to just go for an autograph, but we have evolved far beyond that now, haven't we? And it's a place where it can be politicized, and players can put these messages out. And I do wonder if, for example, Wimbledon will be looking and reminding players that that is not something that they want to see. They're asking Russian players to sign neutrality agreements. Who's to say if I'm, working for Wimbledon or the All England Lawn Tennis Club at the moment, and I'm seeing Djokovic write a statement like this, do we need to prepare neutrality statements for other things kind of going on? Because it looks like there are other aspects that are boiling over, not just Russia and Belarus versus Ukraine. And it'll be interesting to see. I don't expect to see any sort of punishment come to fruition. I think the French Tennis Federation have already said that they've made a statement. It's not really said anything, and they're just gonna maybe remind Novak Djokovic. But if he continues to make these statements, I think it's probably going to be looked at a lot more sternly by the Wimbledon tournament organisers than I think the stance that the French Open Tennis Federation have done.
Yeah, it's very different to just writing love and peace on a camera. No one can argue with that. But I think maybe
it was so explicit. I think that's the issue, because it was so explicit. If he had just maybe said stop the violence, it's a bit like, oh, okay, there's a little bit more kind of open to interpretation. Remember with the Andrei Rublev, message in relation to the war, he didn't necessarily kind of call that out explicitly. It's just sort of kind of was referenced. And I wondered, if Novak Djokovic wanted to make a point of this to the crowd, then perhaps it could have been a little bit vaguer than he went about writing it on the lens.
Absolutely, completely agree. And on the tennis side of things, he is through, and we will have the night session against Martin.
And all his injuries seem to be magically not apparent anymore. So that's good news for him. He'll still, I think, be annoyed, and I have no doubt Carlos Alcaraz fans will be annoyed that Daniil Medvedev did all that hard work in Rome to become the second seed and push Djokovic into the top half, and then only to go out in the first round.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people might find that quite frustrating, to say the least. But another nation, I guess, of tennis fans that might be frustrated is Great Britain, the UK, because there's only one remaining British player in the singles left, and that is Cam Norrie, who almost went out as well. He survived in 5 sets to Benoit Paire. But we had Dan Evans losing in straight sets to Thanasi Kokkinakis. Jack Draper retiring after a set to Thomas Etcheverry. And we've had no women in the main draw, of course. So it's not been great from a British perspective. Jack Draper, obviously, very sad that he's had injury issues. I think he's quite upset about that, as you can imagine. He was determined to play, but I think it was just way too much of an ask with his injury. Yeah,
it was really disappointing. I mean, it was always going to be a tough matchup against Etcheverry on a clay court. And it was interesting to hear his comments afterwards. In the match, he was talking to his coach and saying, I'm not retiring from another match. I don't want to do this. Even if I have to play 3 sets underarm, I don't care. I just want to play. So I think it shows the level of frustration that he's dealing with his body at the moment. We know he's such a talented prospect on the tour, but it seemed like the body is getting the better of him at the moment. And I'm almost kind of scared to make comparisons with Kyle Edmund, who was in a very similar, I feel, position with being such an exciting prospect on the tour, making inroads at Grand Slams, and then again his body kind of took his toll, and it remains to be seen whether he can get back to kind of former glories. But to see it happen to Jack Draper at such a young age, I mean, he's still only kind of 21 years old. It's it's really, really annoying. And he said, I think mentally it's just mentally demoralizing when these injuries come along and they just don't let you play his tennis. So I hope he can get better, particularly obviously with the grass courts and Wimbledon coming up, because I would say that if there is a blessing, then it's maybe the fact that he's not going to put his body under too much more physical stress of the red dirt, and he can get back to the surface that he can probably do the most damage on. Also shorter points as well with quicker courts. I just hope he can get fit for what hopefully will be a crack at, I think he's in the entry list for Queens, and then and then Wimbledon.
Yeah, and another player who can hopefully focus on the grass now is Dan Evans, who actually came out in a sort of his press conference to have a go at the LTA. Sort of been a bit of criticism around the scholarship program that the LTA has. They have a pro scholarship program. I think they have 5 players who get these sort of contracts. Scholarships contracts essentially. And Dan Evans basically coming out saying they need to open it up to people of different backgrounds, not people who have been born with a silver spoon in their mouth. It needs to be more people from working class, kind of poorer backgrounds. And he's very much identifies as a working class tennis pro, as he's described himself. Do you agree with Dan Evans' criticism there?
I thought it was I thought it was nice for him to, even in defeat, come out with this message. I mean, there are going to be people out there who probably say that he was trying to deflect, from his own performance, and the LTA is an easy target. But this is a message that I think needs to be said. But I will say, I think, to me, this is kind of talking about, where do you find these, working class players if they feel like clubs are too elitist, and the idea of a membership. And I do think going down to your local park, we've spoken to the LTA about their kind of park strategy. I think that's a really interesting opportunity, and it's certainly something that needs, I think, to just be monitored and thought about and continue to be assessed, because I do think that is where a big area where working class backgrounds who maybe can't afford to join a club will go and play and get into the sport. So I certainly think that he's got the right to kind of say that, and I'm glad he's raised awareness of this. But I think at the same time the LTA are kind of doing their bit, but it's not something that can be fixed overnight.
No, and it starts from the real bottom up. It's getting all players involved from all backgrounds, as you said, sort of from the word go, not just when it comes to getting a scholarship. But perhaps more on that in the run up to Wimbledon. Let's look at some of the other results from the last couple of days. Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz also safely through comfortably.
When are we talking about the Carota fan club?
We're talking about it right now, Joel. It's my favourite thing to come out of recent.
It's my favourite thing to come out of round one, to be honest. Regardless of, forget all the results. I just love image. I just love this image of grown men going to the French Open, going to a Grand Slam, dressed as carrots.
Yes, so Jannik Sinner has quite orange hair, and he says that he has a bunch of fans who dress up as carrots, wave Italian flags, and they cheer for him at his matches. And they're known as the Carota Boys. And Jannik Sinner has been known to eat a carrot on a tennis court. I think he did it back in Vienna, so that this nickname has come about. So if anyone listening loves Jannik Sinner, who's your favourite player, get that carrot costume ready.
I feel like we got to do an episode in our own Carota uniforms.
I mean, do I own anything orange? I'm just struggling to think now. Bright orange outfit. Yeah, I think we could. Instead of the Doritos at midnight, do you want to, snack on a bunch of carrots, maybe JPEG style?
Who was that player who really who started like the pickle juice craze? Well, whoever it was, we need to know more about kind of players. What their kind of quirky food supplements are on a court, and then have more fans just dress up as them and go to their tournaments. So maybe we should dress up as the pickle juice fans and just go to sort of find some players who enjoy some pickle juice as their supplement and go support them.
There was also a female player a couple of years ago. I think it was at Roland Garros, and she just had like a pot of noodles, like a takeaway on the side of the court.
Oh, that suits me. That's just right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's making me hungry for my dinner. But yes, and aside from carrots, let's go back to the tennis. As much as we want to talk about vegetables and fruits, Caroline Garcia. Let's talk about Caroline Garcia. She only narrowly survived in her first round match. She was up
Great
against
match.
Yeah, really good match. China's Wang Zhizhu, Caroline Garcia winning 6-4 in the third set. They were only broken twice. It wasn't a break fest. They were quite strong on serve. It just went on and on and on. A bit like that Katie Porter match we were present at in Coventry by the sounds of it. But she is safely enough through to fight another day. She's got Blinkova, I think, tomorrow, which is going to be a tough battle again for Garcia.
Strasbourg runner-up, I think.
Strasbourg runner-up, yeah. So in really good form. So definitely another stern test, I think. But Wang, her opponent, is now coached by Nigel Sears, apparently.
She is a very... I'd not watched much of her, but she was fantastic, I think, against Garcia. She was very... I think I tweeted, she's very unflappable on the tennis court. As you can imagine, Garcia was very intimidating with her big booming serves. The French crowd as well. But Wang was fantastic, I thought. And she's a very exciting player to watch. I think she's only 24 years old. So I'm interested to see. She's definitely a player you do not want to be facing, I think, in the early rounds, because she pushed Garcia all the way here, and there were times when I was wondering, hang on, is Garcia going to be the top women's seed to go out of the competition so far? Because we know it's not always been a match made in heaven, her and the French Open, and sometimes the nerves have got the better of her. I think it was great to see her swagger onto the court. She looked so confident, and she looked like in the mood, and she really needed to be at a high level, because Wong on the other side of the court was also playing a really, really aggressive brand of tennis.
Yeah, and hopefully she'll be on good form tomorrow. But 5th seed Garcia surviving. A lot of other seeds did not survive and they crashed out. We mentioned earlier Petra Kvitova, 10th seed. 11th seed Kudermetova, also a goner. 12th seed Belinda Bencic out. 16th seed Pliskova out. Also Martina Trevisan, who was the 26th seed.
Ogier Aliassime to Fornini.
Yeah, men's side, Ogier Aliassime out.
I'm only bringing that up, Kim, because I called that in the predictions. Ogier Aliassime he's had injury issues. I think he had stomach troubles, overnight. So that wasn't necessarily, I don't think we can read too much into that, but still, he's definitely trying to find some form.
Yeah, Jan-Lennard Struff out. He was the Madrid finalist. I thought he was going to go to the quarters or something, but he's gone. Van der Zandschulp's gone. I think he'll be wanting to focus on the grass. And also Sakkari out. Magdalene Net out. Joel, sorry to say. I know.
I mean that part of the draw has just opened up massively. I mean, Maria Sakkari, Karolina Muchova, really tight match. We know Sakkari is a very consistent performer, getting to the semi-finals, but Muchova is just she's fantastic. I just wish that she can just play injury free, because she would comfortably, I think, be in the top 20s, be a seeded player. But you're sort of looking at it like, if you're in Sakkari's position, like a Kaya Kanepi, I just really hope I don't draw Karolina Muchova in round 1. Yeah,
Muchova also beat Sakkari here last year in the second round. So having now read that fact, I sort of revising the fact that I'd put Sakkari going to the semi-finals. But I'm really pleased for Muchova, because, like you said, she deserves to be up there, really. And Sloane Stephens as well, former Grand Slam champion. She's been in the final in Roland Garros before, and beating Pliskova in straight sets. That was really pleasing to see from a Sloane Stephens perspective. So perhaps she can, get some decent wins here. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, another player who's had, former glories here, came very close. Had one of my favourite matches of all time, that final against Simona Halep. She obviously won that tournament in St. Malo, that WTA 125. Has been playing well, I think, on the clay on the tour. Not maybe necessarily picking up trophies, but showing a good level of game. So, great to see her win against Pliskova. I think she was leading the head-to-head, so maybe not as big of an upset as maybe some would think. I think she was like 4-1 in the head-to-head, but good win nonetheless.
Yeah, and as a result of the likes of Sakkari, Bencic going out, we do have someone who's going to be in the quarterfinals out of the following: Karolina Muchova, Nadia Podoroska, former semi-finalist here, Sara Errani, former finalist here, Irina Begu, Leila Fernandez, we know she can go deep at a slam, Clara Towson, young, promising player who, had to qualify this time around. Leolia Jean-Jean, local French wildcard, and I think Alina Avanasayan, who beat Bencic in 3 sets. So one of those players is going to be a quarterfinalist.
It's open.
So
big opportunity. Who have you got?
Irani. Oh wow, experience! Yeah, I'm liking the look of Clara Towson. She qualified and then thrashed Sasnovich, so I'm going to say her.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna keep on with the Muchova hype.
Let's look at the order of play for day 4. Some tasty matches on Chatrier. Camila Giorgi versus Jessie Pegula, followed by Caroline Garcia, Anna Blinkova. Carlos Alcaraz, number 1 seed, against Taro Daniel, and then Novak Djokovic and Marton Fucsovics in the night session. also quite tasty on Suzanne Longlon as well, with Storm Sanders, who I think she's Storm Hunter now, isn't she? But the some of the scoring apps haven't quite updated. So Storm Hunter, great name. She's playing Alina Svitolina, recent Strasbourg champion. We've got Stan the Man Wawrinka against Tanasi Kokkinakis. That could be fun. Corentin Moutet, Andrei Rublev. I think that could go 5 sets, you know.
That feels like it's got 5 sets written all over it.
And Jean-Jean Avanasayan to round off. Is there a match from the schedule on both of the main courts, Joel, that you're particularly going to be tuning into above all else?
I think it might be Camilla Giorgi, Jessie Pegula, actually. Yes. First match on Chatrier. I think there could, I don't know, maybe there could be an upset there. I mean, I was actually impressed with how easily Pegula dealt with the threat of Danielle Collins in round one, but Camilla Giorgi does like an upset, and I wouldn't put it past her against Jessie Pegula.
Yeah, I was surprised how well Pegula defeated Collins as well, but I do think Georgie, that could be a scalp. Third seed could be a goner. I'm also a bit concerned for Caroline Garcia, given Blinkova's good form, and Garcia at home, nerves, French crowd. You know, it may get the better of her. I know she's doing a lot better than she was before, but
concerns for Norrie or against Lucas Pouille?
Oh, yes, very much so. I think if he struggled with Benoit Paire, I feel like Pouille might be more of the same, sadly. Hopefully not. Prove me wrong, Cameron. Come on. But yes, I think there's a good lineup. I think Moutet, Rublev, that could be 5 sets as well. Just Moutet likes a bit of drama, I think, on his home courts, doesn't he? Which anyway brings us on to more drama, collector set predictions.
Drama that's already happened.
I know. Thanks to everyone for sending in your predictions. We've had lots of entries, so thank you ever so much. And we will update sort of midway through the tournament with how everyone's doing. But we need to reveal our predictions, which we all made before the play started on Sunday.
And we've got Chris's predictions as well.
He sent them in. So let's go through. Obviously, we had Medvedev, Rune, Norrie, Rybakina, Ostapenko, and Goff. So we all had to guess how well they would do. So let's start with Daniil Medvedev, who we know has already lost. Joel, what did you go for with Daniil Medvedev?
I want to take some credit here because I said round 4. And I looked at everyone who submitted. No one said round 1 for Medvedev, and the closest anyone was round 4. So even though I'm wrong, I'm taking partial credit there. But I've got Medvedev round 4. I've got Holger Rune getting to the final. Cam Norrie round 3. Rybakina as my ladies champion. I've downgraded Ostapenko. I think I could put her getting to the finals in my draw predictions. I've downgraded her to quarter-final, and I've got Coco Gauff. I've got Coco Gauff round 3 because I thought she would lose to Kalinina, but that might not happen. That won't happen now. So that's a bit up in the air as well.
Yeah, well, mine, shame to say, my prediction was for the final for Daniil Medvedev. So yes, you can laugh. Thanks, Joel.
Yes.
Semi-finals for Holger Rune. I thought he was going to lose to Medvedev. So obviously, that may not be the case now. Well, it won't be the case, but who knows? Rune might be more on for the final. Norrie had round 3. I thought he would lose to Massetti, which could still happen.
Yes.
Rybakina, I've gone semi-final. I think Swiatek's going to beat her. Quarter-final for Ostapenko, and round 3 for Coco Gauff. I also earmarked Kalinina to beat her, but it could be someone else.
It's interesting because we have all gone the same, Chris included, for the women. We have all gone Rybakina. Oh, sorry. Apart from you for Rybakina semi-final, me and Chris have gone the same. Rybakina champion, Ostapenko quarter-final, Gauff round 3. However, Chris, for his men, he's got Medvedev in the semi-finals, which we can obviously count out. Rune as champion, and then Cam Norrie round 3. So there's quite a few similarities, I think, across the board there.
I love how Chris just continues to predict Rune to win everything. It's brilliant.
A double champ in collector set predictions. That is a bold strategy, I think, from Chris when he's, as I said, Rune champ Rybakina champ. That is some strong predictions, I think.
Well, we'll see how well they hold up over the course of the fortnight, and we look forward to hearing Chris in the next episode bringing us some insight from out and about in Paris at Roland Garros as well.
Yes, listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action to come from Roland Garros. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media or email the show. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and also TikTok now.
Ooh.
At Tennis Weekly Pod. You will find us on all 4 social channels. Very exciting. You can also email us as well if you prefer, tennisweeklypod@gmail.com, and do check out our website, tennisweekly.co.uk.
And I would just do a cheeky plug for the TikTok, because Chris is going to be uploading on there whilst he is in Paris. We're also going to be uploading all of our little audiogram clips as well. So if you haven't got time to listen to the full show, we're going to be putting up clips from each of our episodes, which are going to be being posted on TikTok as well as our other social channels. So yeah, if you're on TikTok, make sure to give us a follow. But we will be back on Thursday at Tennis Weekly HQ for our round 2 French Open catch-up, brought to you by the Boodles. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Kim.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.